Do you think you know who the strongest live-action Superman is? Is it the one who fought Doomsday? The one who held up a falling skyscraper? Or the one who lifted an entire continent? You're
wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved.
The strongest Superman isn't who you think it is, and the answer is guaranteed to surprise you. We're going to put their muscles up against physics. No feats of speed or time travel or sun-dipped Superman here or any extra powers. We'll measure their impossible feats in tons and finally settle the debate once and for all. So strap in, because we're about to find out who the true Man of Steel really is. And the numbers don't lie. Though he definitely won't be winning any awards, we can't forget to pay homage to the original live-action Superman, Kirk Alyn. But the problem is, budget and technology constraints really only help to display what Superman could actually do, not what his limits were. This is about the extent of what we get to see of the first live-action Man of Steel. So we know he can lift at least 2 tons, or as we're measuring today, 1 car. Now, I know Henry Cavill fought Doomsday and the World Engine's gravitational pull, but I have no idea how to measure that. And his run-in with a nuke was invulnerability, not flexing his muscles. So we're looking purely at his biggest measurable feats of strength on screen, which I believe is this. Henry Cavill dragged a cargo ship in Batman vs. Superman that would have weighed around 100,000 tons, and he appears to be having zero trouble other than his slow movement. Though he didn't lift it, this was the biggest physically measurable feat we see him complete on the big screen. Just to bring that down to earth for you, that's about 50,000 cars, or all of the cars in San Marino, a tiny landlocked country by Italy. Now, I know Tyler Hoechlin also fought Doomsday and split merging planets, but I have no idea what's happening there, and I don't know how to measure it, but I do know that he couldn't have done it on an average day. If it wasn't for his boost of power, he would have failed, but the most impressive physical feat we ever saw him accomplish at regular power that we can measure was holding a section of a bridge that likely would have weighed around 200,000 tons. And then holding it with one hand. That's about 100,000 cars. Of course, we can't forget the new guy, often called Weak or Superboy. This Superman has actually shown his physical strength in greater ways than people realize. Though David Corenswet lifts the dead kaiju, which would have weighed roughly around 50 to 100,000 tons, he also held up a skyscraper that could have weighed as much as 250,000 tons. Not to mention it was falling, which would have increased the poundage significantly, but I don't have time for that math. But I can tell you that it would be similar to lifting 125,000 cars, which is almost equal to all of the registered sedans in Wyoming. Believe it or not, George Reeves' Superman was faced with one of the biggest feats of strength of all the live-action Superman, making it to the top 5. Though we normally just see him bust through walls, George Reeves' Superman faced the incredible threat of a 5.5-mile-wide meteor hurtling towards Earth. That's around 1 trillion tons. The meteor episode Panic in the Sky was a groundbreaking idea, as it was only a few years later that a similar-sized meteor was theorized by scientists to wipe out the dinosaurs. George Reeves' Superman completely destroyed the threat, but ended up with amnesia. Regardless of what he remembers, that means he would have destroyed an equivalent mass equaling around 500 billion cars. For reference, by the way, they've only currently manufactured about 2 billion cars since the invention of the automobile. Don't ever call Golden Age Superman weak. Dean Cain's Superman on Lois and Clark had many great feats, but the irony is his biggest measurable feat of strength under normal circumstances was a tribute episode called All Shook Up, where his biggest feat of strength allowed him to destroy a 17-mile-wide meteor that was hurtling towards Earth, which would have weighed around 3 trillion tons. Sound familiar? This episode was in honor of George Reeves' exact same adventure, but this time he had an even bigger stellar threat that was equal to about 1.5 trillion cars. Kinda weird, since I'm pretty sure I remember him struggling to stop a train one time, which is significantly smaller. Now, we all know Superman's speed is an extension of his strength, and we all know that Superman went so fast he went back in time, but these aren't really physical feats of strength performed by the Man of Steel. So for Christopher Reeve, the best place to look at his biggest feat of strength with his muscles is to travel into the depths of the Earth's crust underneath the San Andreas Fault. In this scene, Lex Luthor set off a bomb that causes the fault to collapse, so Superman has to swoop in and save the day. This was difficult to calculate because Ultimately, I figured he was lifting California, which would have weighed about 160 quadrillion tons. Yes, that's a lot of zeros. This was the moment in the film that people started to wonder, what can't Superman do? By the way, that's somewhere around 80 quadrillion cars, which I imagine will never be produced, as we will likely have our jetpacks by then. Following suit with Christopher Reeve, just as the movie did its best to do, Superman Returns has an even bigger feat of strength. And no, I'm not talking about when he grabbed the Daily Planet ball as it plummeted down from the top of the world-famous skyscraper, and I'm also not talking about his most famous scene where he saves a plane that accidentally got taken to the edge of our gravitational pull. In Superman Returns, Lex Luthor makes his own continent, about half the size of the US, and Superman separates it from the Earth and lifts it to space. We will ignore the fact that Kryptonite was involved, but the weight of landmass would be approximately 450 quadrillion tons. Do I even need to mention how many cars that would be anymore? Now, as impressive as that is, it doesn't even come close to the biggest measurable feat of strength that we've seen Superman perform on screen. And the irony is, the actor that actually pulled off this massive feat never actually played the Man of Steel. That's right, our strongest physical display we've ever had from a Superman actor is by Tom Welling. You might be used to him clinging to rockets or catching cars with his bare hands, but his real feat of strength was the last episode of Smallville, when he finally accepts his destiny as the Man of Steel. Apocalypse, a planet that's debated to be between the sizes of the Moon and Saturn, is moving into the position of Earth. The weight alone is heavy, but he also has to push against the gravitational pull of the two planets as they get closer together. Even if we count Tyler Hoechlin's Super Saiyan feat of pulling two planets apart, occupying the same physical space, Apocalypse could possibly beat the mass of the Earth and Bizarro World combined. But let's assume that Apocalypse is on the smaller side, about the size of the Moon. That would mean that Tom Welling's first day as the Man of Steel bench pressed an impressive 80 quintillion tons. And that's assuming it's as small as the Moon. That means that if you put all of the previous feats of strength that we talked about together, they wouldn't even come close to the same weight. How many cars is that? It doesn't even matter. The point is that Superman is super. But even though every version is Superman, Christopher Reeve seems to hold the standard for the Man of Steel in most people's hearts. Watch this video to figure out just what Christopher Reeve does to be held so dearly by fans of all ages.